Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over LTCN and BCHG and show you guys some potential buy zones for some of these grayscale trusts. With that being said, let's get it. All right, so before I get started with that, I want to show you guys all the different super thanks that we got. We didn't get a chance to get to this lately because, again, we do work. So shout out to Preston, Texas for the $5. Thank you for that. Universal Creator for the $1.99. Patrice for the $9.99. Thank you again from Buck Webb, and also Bremil, and a shout out and a thank you to John O'Neill for the $25. And just want to make sure I get all you guys here. So let's see. So those guys, and also I would like to give a shout out to the Cosmic Debris for the $15 super thanks as well. Okay, so thank you guys for your support of this channel. We do work pretty hard here for you. Of course, we don't really expect anything in return, but we are grateful whenever you guys are willing to do anything to help us out. So let's first actually get into the portfolio. So as you guys can see here, kind of really getting slammed on the portfolio today. It kind of is what it is. There was I believe the market news that came out this morning was there was hot job data, which basically what that means is potentially it's inflationary, although that's not a guarantee. And the Fed meeting is right around the corner. I believe it's actually tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, today and tomorrow. So I'll have to go double check on that, but I'm pretty sure it's today and tomorrow. So basically, if it truly is inflationary, they're basically expecting the Fed to potentially pivot from a cut to a hike. Do I think the Fed's going to hike rates? I don't know. Probably not. I mean, there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, because the higher the interest rates are in the United States for borrowing, the more expensive it becomes for the government to pay back its the interest on its national debt. It's a complicated thing. You guys can go look it up in your own time. And number two, I mean, at this point, it's been dragging out for a long time. It seems like the Fed is doing one thing and the Biden administration is doing something entirely different. So the Fed is trying to control and cool inflation, whereas the Biden administration, they're just absolute nut jobs that just can't stop spending money, and that's causing inflation. So it's kind of counteracting what the Fed's doing. And I could be wrong about that. Of course, it's all just my opinion, but that's what I believe is happening right now. And I believe that it's all just a game that the Fed and the White House are playing to try to manipulate the data, because, I mean, in all honesty, this is really, I mean, even by historical standards, this has been dragging out for way too long. This whole inflation thing should have been done ages ago. If you guys go back and look at history at how long basically how long a recessionary environment or indicators were playing out, were among the longest periods in history at this point. So yeah, I'm pretty sure at this point it's just manipulation. But I mean, as you guys can see, like up here, the yield curve is still uninverted, but the yields are still going back up. Makes absolutely no sense. But again, if the Fed's trying to get to a point where they can cut rates, meaning they're trying to kill inflation, and the Biden administration is trying to make inflation go parabolic, that's not good for anybody, right? And the Fed can't properly do its job. So the Fed, unfortunately, is stuck between a rock and a hard place at this point. Unemployment's not going up. Core and headline of CPI inflation is not going down. If anything, we're getting a small tick up, and then the yields are going up. These are all bearish. What the market wants to see is the polar opposite of these. I think that all these can happen without unemployment going up, but we'll just have to wait and see on that one. So that's what's going on with the portfolio and the macroeconomics and the news data this morning. So as you guys can see on ETCG, we are down quite a bit. Didn't really think it was going to go down this much, if I'm being completely honest. I kind of thought maybe it would stop it around that level we showed you guys, but we'll take a look at that in a minute. HZEN's pretty close to the buy zone, so we're considering actually picking some more up. LTCN, of course, we're still on the profit on this one, but that's also because we bought way back here at 13 and we've kind of just been holding. So yeah, The amount of profit that we were in has been cut down by nearly 2/3, unfortunately, but this is the nature of crypto. You have to understand that things go up, they go down. And unlike the last bull market cycle that we had, we did not have the whole, the Fed trying to raise rates kind of environment and all this other nonsense that's going on in the United States and around the world for that matter. So we didn't have those issues back in 2021. It was just as simple as the pandemic, and then there was money printing, and we didn't have all this other crap. So mana has gone down quite a bit more than we expected. May have to pick some of that up too. So let's go ahead and get into the charts now. So LTCN, like we told you guys before, basically what we're looking for here is a break of this trend line. We are expecting this support to hold. Again, this support has been tested in past times. So you can see it was resistance here, and it took us a long time to get back to this level. And once we did, we pretty much just blasted straight through. Now it could come back down through support and go lower, just like the way that it went up. But at this point, I would say that's probably unlikely. Although this candle right here is not giving me a whole lot of confidence, but because it's lower than these ones, if this weekly candle gets a close lower than these weekly candles, that's technically bearish. But again, I don't think it's going to get past this support. But just like I'll show you guys in the previous breakout we had, so you can see we kind of tested this downtrend line. We did get a dump off of it, which we are seeing something similar here. So test and then a drop, basically right into the support zone and into the EMAs, and then boom, we took off from that point. And when this thing took off, again, it was a pretty huge move. So from the support to the wick high up there, you guys can see it was a massive 265%. If we get something similar, again, if it was to repeat, it would basically test this trend line all the way until it gets to this support zone, which would ideally be somewhere between the yellow and the blue EMAs, just like last time, as you guys can see down at the lower support there. And then it would just break out and start ripping to the upside. So let's assume maybe it happens like next week. Again, that's not a prediction. I really don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but we'll see. You guys can see the measured move exactly. If it was equal to the previous one, would put us up at $130 per share. So it's pretty close to the top of that zone up there. This zone up here is going to be roughly about $100 to $135, and we might get stopped temporarily, maybe at $50 at this control zone, and also somewhere in this $75 level, or not control zone, I mean control bar. So this big fat red bar down here. So somewhere between 50 to 75, there's probably going to be a little bit of resistance. But once we get past the control bar, I don't think there's going to be too many bears trying to stand in our way. And I think we're going to go much, much higher from here. So if we measure from support to the, let's just say to the control bar, that's it. You'd be looking at 104% return. Up to the wick high up here, we'll go with this one. So that's $155, 122%, and then the let's see, the $75 level would be 205%. And then to get from support all the way to the top of this range high would be about 410%. So pretty large moves there. BCHG, this one has, kind of expecting something similar here. So BCHG, again, would want to get a test of the trend line, and then a huge breakout, which we obviously got a gap up, and then basically a rip straight up after this, as you guys saw. So again, it does need to test the EMAs. It does need to maybe not necessarily hold support, but come back above support and then come back above the trend line and break out, which we're seeing something very similar here. So you got the support, it's testing support, needs to get back above the trend line, and then we have a breakout. So from the point that it broke out to the point that it peaked, it was about a 6x, or roughly, well, in this case, I guess a little bit less than a 6x, so about a 430% gain. Again, if it does break out for a 430% gain, that's going to be a massive increase on your money. No, excuse me, no guarantees, of course. So you'd be looking at nearly $60 on this move from the current price. Actually, I take that back. I'm pretty sure I didn't measure that right. So We got to do it from the breakout point here. So yeah, that would actually be kind of a little bit closer to where the target would be, which is about $83. So pretty much about a 7x. And I mean, that comes almost perfectly up to this first macro Fibonacci level here. So, but again, I mean, we were in overbought territory on the RSI for a long time, so it wouldn't surprise me if it took a few weeks for this to play out. I'm not expecting these moves on BCHG and LTCN to be immediate. If they were immediate and we got a breakout up 400 or 500%, that would be pretty sweet. But I think a little bit of patience is going to be required here. So support currently sits between 1040 to 1280. 1806 is to $20 is going to be your resistance, and then $24 roughly is going to be the swing high. So from the current support to the swing high, you'd be looking at about nearly 115%. So just so you all know, so BCHG is in this buy zone. Whether you guys choose to get in or not, that's up to you. You can see it was tested heavily as support or resistance, but this is your opportunity. If you want to buy it, that's up to you. I can't make any promises it's not going to go lower. It could go lower. We could bottom out somewhere between $7 to $8. We just don't know yet at this point. So HZEN, this is getting very close to the buy zone. This is one that we are taking a look at buying. So again, 380 to 420 is going to be support. $7 to about $8 is going to be your resistance. And then your swing high up there is going to be 1050. We can talk about the rest of it once we get to that point. So from the current price to resistance, you're looking at about 70%, 100%, and then roughly about 155% respectively. Let's go over ETCG first. So ETCG, it does appear that it wants to break this trend line. That does kind of suck, I'm not going to lie, but there is still some support here. So that support pretty much sits at the bottom of this channel and also this EMA. So it's not a lot, but it's something. So that would be roughly about $11. This thing could potentially bottom out at 11. If it goes any lower than that, which again, this is crypto, it's possible, you'd be looking at roughly around $7.50 to $8, $8.50, somewhere in there. So if we just measure it from where it currently is to get back to, let's say, the top of the support range, you'd be looking at 31%, 46%, and then all the way at the top, 67% respectively. So $13 to about 15 3/4 on the support, and 1760 to roughly about 20-ish on the resistance. Excuse me. So GXLM, again, this thing probably, if it does bottom, it's probably going to bottom somewhere around this trend line here. I would think that would be likely because, again, the top of the trend line and the top of these candle bodies all in this area between 28 and about 32 is consistent with that trend line. If it goes lower than that, well, I mean, the floor could fall out and we could go all the way down to maybe as low as $20 before getting a rebound. I'm not trying to scare anybody when I say that, but do understand that's a possibility. So we'll just say from $32 to resistance, you'd be looking at 60% to about 80% and as much as 112% respectively to the upside. And then of course, resistance is $52.50 to about $58.50. So ETH, again, I'll reiterate, just like I said before, I think anywhere along this trend line and or this support level is probably a good point to at least start positioning. I would not necessarily go all in at this level at these points because of the macroeconomics starting to look a little bit bearish. Of course, the Fed doesn't have to raise rates. They could just simply hold rates forever if they wanted to, but I don't think that the next president that we have, which is not going to be Biden, is going to allow that. So again, 17 to 18 bucks on the support, and the support of the trend line is anywhere between 17 to the current price of about 21 bucks. And your resistance, 25 to 29, and then that swing high up there is going to be about 36 bucks or so to the upside. So from the support zone to the resistance, you'd be looking at about 45, 68, and 106% respectively. And of course, the cup and handle target, if we get that, let's say we get that from the support level, you'd be looking at roughly about 210% gain. Zcash, this one is in the ideal buy zone, but of course it's only ideal so long as it holds. There's no guarantees. You can see it tested as support and resistance previously. So support is $4.30 to about $5. Resistance is $7.30 to about $7.90. So the move from zone to zone here would be roughly about 63%, 77%, and 126% respectively, up at about 10 and a quarter at the top there. So GSOL, this one, if it gets below these wicks, I would say it's definitely going to go a little bit lower. Where exactly it's going to bottom out, I don't know. But me personally, I would not buy this until it got to this zone. So about 175 to $200, or yeah, 175 to $200. And the resistance, or I should say the swing high up here, is going to be about 570. So if you wanted to buy sooner and just wait for it to get back to the highs, that's up to you. But for us, we really like to try to get the best asymmetrical bet. It's the reason why we take the most conservative approach, because if it does get down there, whether the chances are slim of it happening or not, we get the biggest move. So that move would be about 200%. And just to show you guys here just how far this drop could be, it could be as much as about 47% just to get back to that level. So Mana, this one, we kind of thought it was going to stop at this support level, but clearly it looks like it may not. Of course, we still have 3 trading days. The Fed might come out tomorrow and be like, oh, we're not going to raise rates, and then the markets just go up another 5% in a day or something. It's kind of weird times that we live in, but that is possible. So if it does drop further, I suspect it's probably going to bottom somewhere between $11.50. Again, this wick high up here is at $70. So the returns just keep getting juicier the lower this thing goes. But of course, it also becomes a little bit riskier too, because it could just keep going down. So keep that in mind. So support is $17.50 to $20, and the swing high up there is roughly about $70. So just to take the measured move from that point to the high point, you'd be looking at $272. Now, if it gets down to the bottom of these candles here, it'd be a different story. You would be looking at from the swing low to the swing high about 554%. So, that's nearly double the amount of money that you would make, assuming it gets down that low. And you can also get your cost basis that low. So we'll go over GBAT here. We were going to buy this one and Mana, but we actually just decided to go with Mana because, again, the underlying token massively outperformed basic attention token in the previous cycle. So again, we thought it was going to bottom out around $10. It looks like it is not. That was just where we assumed it would bottom out. Of course, there's no guarantees. Markets are very tricky, so it's hard to know exactly where the bottom is. But if it doesn't hold this red EMA, it's likely going to come back down to this support. I am just going to be honest with y'all, and that is a support and resistance tested level there, so probably going to be pretty strong. That's going to be between 4.5 to about 5.25. And the high up there is going to be about $32 or so. So if you are willing to wait for it to go that low, or you just want to DCL all the way down, so from low to high, you'd be looking at about 550%. G-Link, it is starting to test this level. If we get a lower low on this red weekly candle, that does mean that we're probably going to come lower into the zone. So buy area number 1 here would be 66 to 83. Buy area number 2 would be about 39.5 to $44, somewhere in there. And your swing high is going to be about 220. Do I think we're at the end of the bull market in crypto? No, I don't. I think this is just, unfortunately, the effects of the negative macroeconomic headwinds that we're still trying to deal with. It sucks, but is what it is. So 193% move from buy zone 1 to the high, buy zone 2 to the high, you'd be looking at almost 450%. So PhilG, this one has come down just like we said. Again, this was creating a higher or lower high, lower trajectory, which is generally speaking a bearish trend. So again, I do suspect this thing is going to bottom out somewhere between about $37 to $41. And I'm well aware, guys, nobody wants to see their investments go down. But again, we have just had 6 months of straight up. So a pullback or even a correction is healthy. It does usually happen in traditional markets once or maybe twice a year. So it's not really that uncommon. We kind of expected at some point this was going to happen. So $400 on the high there. Do the measure move from the support to the high. I mean, it's a huge move. This is absolutely crazy. So just to get back up to that high up there is 835%. So that's a pretty nice return. GLIV, which is the last one, we're not really too interested in this, but we cover it just because it's part of the Grayscale Trust kind of consortium of funds. So the support is going to be 1180 to about 1470, and the wick high is going to be $80. Again, we did say that we thought it was going to stop somewhere between 26 to 28 bucks. Clearly that has not happened. It could still happen before the end of the week, but we just don't know yet. So if it comes down to the support, that's going to be 1180 to 15. And one more time, the high is going to be up there 80 bucks. So you would get roughly about a 7 or 8x on your money from this move. If you're patient enough to wait to buy down here and patient enough to wait to sell up here, again, whether you can afford to do that or not, I mean, that's something that you guys know about. We don't know that. So 534% move on this one. So this is the LTCN BCHG and all the other trusts for the day. As you guys can see, we're down quite a bit. I would say the most ideal potential purchases right now, HZEN's getting pretty close, but it's not quite at the support we'd look at right now. BCHG, great buying opportunity. Whether you want to buy it or not, that's up to you. ETCG, this is a 50% discount compared to its NAV, and it's still going down, so that's pretty cheap as far as I'm concerned. GXLM, I'd still be waiting on this one. ETH, anywhere between this zone and this trend line, in my opinion, is a good buying opportunity, or at least a place to start. Zcash is at an ideal area right now. GSOL, I'd be waiting quite a while on this one. Mana, this is, of course, a good buy, and that's, again, the reason why we bought it. We thought it was going to bottom out there, but it actually did not. GBAT, still be waiting a little bit longer on this one. Again, we thought it would bottom out here, but it didn't, so probably going to come back down to this support would be my guess. G-Link, this could potentially start to be a good buy if we get just a little bit lower, but if you guys... I mean, you guys can pick how you want to do this, but we wouldn't start buying this until it probably gets down to about the middle of the zone. So it's pretty close, but not quite there yet. PhilG, not quite there yet. And GLIV, also not quite there yet. We're kind of looking for each of these to get into those green zones. So anyways, hope y'all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.